Hey, and welcome back to the Softpreneur podcast, where anti-establishment thought leaders and holistic wellness visionaries get clear on how to build a business like nobody else's business. I am Dawn Petrin.
And I'm Elyssa Joachim, and we co-create All Connected Agency. We help the wellness industry's most disruptive thought leaders express their essence louder and prouder to create more profitability and possibility. And now it's your turn. We are deeply excited because today we start really with where we always start, with spirit. We are talking about both of our spiritual paths, our journeys that led us to this place, our visions for the collective, why it really feels like more people are waking up to doing business as a serious spiritual practice, how you can know you're not alone, and so much more love for you to experience. So without further ado, let's dive in.
Well, Elyssa, here we are, episode 2 of the Softpreneur podcast. How are you feeling, girl?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like Spirit asked us to do this many moons ago, and it is divine timing. How about you?
Yeah, I love spending my days with you, and I am, just super excited today to speak about something that is just so deep in our hearts, which is our personal spiritual practices. So in each of our episodes from here on in, we are going to do our best to make the first question we ask our guests, do you have a spiritual practice? And is there anything you'd like to share about it? So Elyssa, I'm going to ask you, is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners about your spiritual practice?
Sure. So much to say. I'll start at childhood, but this won't be too long. When I came in, I have been told by my mom that, so my father was Russian Orthodox Christian and my mom is Jewish. And so I grew up agnostic and we did all the holidays and things. And the first time I was taken to a church, a Russian Orthodox church, I turned to my mom and there were like paintings of these men with like long white beards. And I asked her, where's the lady God? And I feel like that's such a story of my spiritual connection because I've, and the term divine feminine has been in the zeitgeist now for quite a while. And I'll say when I started like kind of, as we would say, like waking up or walking the path consciously, it was definitely through goddess practice. And I did so many stories within stories, but I did a temple to the goddess Venus inside of my Brooklyn apartment where I had an extra bedroom for like 1 month before I moved. And I did it with the Numinous, with Ruby Warrington. And we basically had a healing center with practices devoted to guest teachers teaching things about Venus, like beauty, abundance, love, for this whole month in Brooklyn. And it was women kind of coming in. And the funniest thing was that my building that I lived in for 5 years after graduating from college, where I never say where I went, but I'll tell you because it's good shadow hunting for me. I went to Harvard. The building that I lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn was called Venus. Like it had Venus on the front, And so it was like my send off before I moved. And then I've lived like 10 places across the country in the last like almost 10 years. But yeah, so connecting with Venus and Divine Mother, Divine Feminine has been a huge part of my spiritual path. And then I started doing healing practice and Reiki. I had done like acting for many years, and these mind-body techniques I learned through acting kind of woke up my intuitive senses very strongly. So when I took on a healing modality, Reiki, I started getting messages from like, I'd be in a circle and it would be like, oh, what is this energy? And sometimes I enjoyed receiving the message and sometimes I was like, what is this? So I learned that I needed to set a really strong like container about energetics that I wanted to connect to or not. And so through several years, I found the teachings of Yogananda and that lineage, Yogananda, Babaji, Lahiri Mahashaya. And I found that connecting to and walking the yogic path with these saints and like male saints helped me to sort of feel safe. And it's interesting because Yogananda loved Divine Mother too. So now I work with Yogananda's teachings. I'm a devotee. I love Ananda Maima, who's behind me. And spiritual path or practice is really my number one. And here I am practicing like marketing as a healing modality and weaving spirit into everywhere I am asked to be as much as possible all day, every day.
Yes, I love that. I feel like you just condensed like lifetimes into, 3 minutes. So thank you for sharing succinctly. We're going to go deeper into it. And I think I'll start in a similar place with childhood. I was baptized Catholic. And so my mom was Anglican and my father was Catholic, and I was baptized Catholic, and I went to an Anglican church and I went to a Catholic school. And I think what that did was like confuse me as well as really like light my fire up for spirit and yeah, for God. And when I was, like 9 or 10, my grandmother on my paternal side was like, you have to choose. You have to be confirmed now. Will you be Anglican or Catholic? And I was like, wait a minute, I have to choose? Like, aren't these the same things basically? And that actually set me off on a journey of philosophy. So I would say when I was 9 years old, I asked for a Bible for Christmas. And then when I was like 13 years old, I asked for philosophy books for Christmas. And so I was not raised agnostic. I was raised Christian. And then I went through like a period of being agnostic, but always feeling so deeply connected with spirit and with God. And through my teen years, I started reading like philosophy, and I also got into acting. And I think so eventually I also found yoga. But one thing I noticed when I was in junior high, I was in a school that was like really into theater, and we would do these meditations before we went on stage. I remember being in like my full-on pirate costume. I was playing a man when I was in 9th grade, Captain Smollett and Treasure Island, and being in my full-on pirate costume. But we would be doing like a meditation before we went on stage. And years later, I did a yoga nidra training, and I was like, oh my God, like Mr. Astle, our, one of our drama teachers in grade 9 was teaching yoga nidra, basically like soul embodiment practices before we went on stage. So I just wanted to say that. And I don't think I ever had like a disconnect from God. It was always like he, she, they were always something it always lit up my heart, but I wasn't really sure how to explore it. And then when I was in university, I went to the U of A and UBC. I took this like yoga class. It was like a core yoga class where we were like working on balls and like, it was really like strengthening. And I had this like spasm in my back, and I was like, ow, it hurts. And I started crying. And this was my first real experience with yoga. And the yoga teacher was teaching this strong, like right before a boot camp, we'll do core yoga. But she came over and she covered me with a blanket. And I just remember like crying and feeling like all of the pain I had felt just like starting to like move through my body. And it wasn't years later till I took my first yoga teacher training. I'm initiated into 3 lineages, but it wasn't until I took my first yoga teacher training in the Kripalu lineage that I realized that wasn't actually like physical pain, but that it was just like stored energy from, like most people of our times. I grew up in the 90s and I had an amazing childhood, but also just had my own little share of things that were hard. And I realized through yoga back then that pain that was moving through me was actually like emotional and spiritual. And like you, Elyssa, about a decade ago, so I finished my first yoga teacher training almost 11 years ago now. And 9 years ago in October, I took over a yoga studio in my almost hometown, in my adopted hometown. And it's actually yoga that introduced me to marketing, because the yoga studio wasn't doing that well. And I had to learn how to market it in order to, continue holding the space as a Like it was a really beautiful yoga studio where people came for healing, not fitness. Not that they didn't also get fitness, but I had to learn how to market it in order to continue having that space. And like you, right away at the beginning of that journey of holding the studio, I actually went to Vancouver and I did a live workshop with Sally Kempton, God bless her soul. It meant so much to me. And I was introduced to all the Mahavidyas. So, by my friend Miriam, who I went with. And these are all the different avatars of the goddess in the Vedic tradition and literature. And right away, as a studio owner, I started working with Bhuvaneshwari. Sorry if I butchered that speaking. And I loved her because she was this goddess who was the mother goddess who existed in the space in between the spaces. And you can feel her when you pause at the top of the breath and the bottom of the breath, but she also exists in the space between the atoms. So I felt okay, if I'm going to be this space holder for this, strong healing community, I'm going to start working with Bhuvaneshwari. So yeah, I chanted to her every single day and, did this visualization meditation that Sally Kempton taught in her book. And it really was that practice, of course, all of the practice of yoga, but that practice with Bhuvaneshwari that allowed me to hold that space, especially because I had no idea what I was doing as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, and I was a pretty new yoga teacher at the time.
Wow, beautiful. The goddess brought us here. And it's so funny when we first met and connected, the levels of, it really moves me because it's true. We are not doing this alone. And the levels of synchronicity or correspondence that Don and I have are continually mind blowing, and just putting out there for the collective, or this idea that there are more people who are tapped in and want to live and work in this way than you think. And we have the privilege of pretty much everybody in our ecosystem, our clients, our collaborators. It's we've all come to, we've been walking the holistic path, the wellness path, the spiritual path for some time now. And it's almost that's just the way we do business together. And it's every day I wake up, and sometimes, you kind of have to pinch yourself whoa, the people that are magnetized through this kind of intention is just, it's mind blowing. And we're doing it all together.
Yeah. And I mean, for context, Elyssa and I are both conversion copywriters. Elyssa started her career over, a decade ago, working with a large branding house in New York. And we're marketers, man. And then we get to work with all of these people who, whether or not they're out loud about it at first, actually, like us, spirit comes first in their business and in their lives. And a lot of the time when it's not is when they're feeling the tension or not wanting to do it, or the money's not coming in. It's oh, I didn't put spirit first. And then all of a sudden the money's not coming in. And we didn't know that we were bringing all of these people towards ourselves in such a deep way until we started setting the intention of our containers with our clients, whether they're done for you, we're writing a funnel for your course, or, helping you with your branding or your website, or in one of our coaching containers. We didn't really realize everyone was as spiritually minded and as disruptive to the mainstream until I, out of the blue, asked Elyssa to do this magical thing she does, which we call tuning in at the beginning of our containers. And I'll let Elyssa explain it a little bit. But, we ask for consent first, hey, we would love to open this container together with a prayer. And our clients are oh my gosh, thank you. So it's super interesting. So Elyssa, do you want to talk a little bit about the tuning in? And we do this before our podcast episodes, before almost everything. Do you want to speak a little bit about what you're doing when you're sharing this tuning in space?
Yes, I'd love to. So this kind of came out of that time I was mentioning when I started doing energy healing practice, and I started receiving intuitive messages. And I learned or kind of taught myself how to give an intuitive reading for others through kind of, now I would say it's the place I go when I'm in meditation and I will receive. I tend to hear. That's the sense I connect to. I hear, feel, but I also see. And this kind of healing modality has been with me now for about 10 years too. And sometimes I used to actually combine it with body work and take someone on like a guided meditation journey, that soul kind of journey that I would hear for them. And it's so interesting because when we came together in All Connected, Dawn and I were using this practice of the tune in, this kind of reading, and I combine it. So now that I also follow Yogananda's practices, Yogananda gave what he called a Divine Mother healing prayer, which is very, very beautiful. And if you connect to Yogananda, like his communities, I follow, I've connected through Ananda, that organization. That's where I took discipleship. Before most practices, a prayer will be given, and it will be a version of the Divine Mother prayer, or really an invocation to the line of saints. So this is my sort of long answer to your question. And I think this was adapted out of that. So Yogananda's healing prayer is, Divine Mother, thou art omnipresent, thou art in all thy children, thou art in, and you say the name of the person you're sending prayer to. Manifest thy healing presence in their body, mind, and soul. And then you rub your palms together and you send Om to that person 3 times, kind of feeling body, mind, soul healing. That's Yogananda's healing prayer. And actually, it's so interesting during the beginning of my post-COVID marketing career when I graduated from screenwriting school at MFA at UCLA and then was like, what's going on? March 2020 and copywriting, for spiritual people. Very funny, winding. I joined Ananda's healing prayer ministry, and I was in a group that would send healing prayer every day. I would be given like a list of 3 names, and after meditation, I would send that prayer. And it's so interesting how I started weaving that healing prayer with the invocation to those saints. And really, it's a way to drop in to being with saints or a kind of enlightened consciousness. So Yogananda said, saints and sages of all true faith. So with that, at the beginning of now, many of our calls will offer this prayer, this tune in, and it's this beautiful way where we sync our energy with everybody involved in a project. And we're sort of deliberately reminding ourselves, yes, we're here to, write an epic launch or create a quiz funnel or do your branding or your website. But like, what are we really all underneath it? What are we really all doing here? And syncing energetically. And it's so cool because when we do these at the beginning of a project, you can feel it, of course, like after the prayer, after this tune in time. And sometimes I'll channel some messages, and sometimes it's just a syncing of energy, but we're all, like we say in like yogic or et cetera spaces, like we've all arrived, right? It's the way that we all kind of arrive to remind ourselves, like, yes, we are doing soul work here. And it continues to blow me away that it's like so connected to these hard skills like marketing and metrics and money and all of those masculine ideas.
Yeah, it's honestly magical. And I think it's really in alignment with our vision for the collective. And of course, we both have two different visions. But like Elyssa said, we had so many synchronicities and things that resonate. I also deeply connected to Yogananda just through his readings. And I feel like this is the point of this podcast in a big way, is that when we put spirit first, however you define spirit, one of our next guests is amazing, and she's more of like an animist. And I actually think I'm like that too. Like spirit exists in all things. Everything on this earth, in this universe, is living and deserves our respect and our cherishment. But when you put spirit first and remember that your business is built around your actual vision for the collective, it's so much easier to get out of your own way. And it's so much easier for things to flow. And so I'm going to ask you the other question we're going to try our best to ask all of our guests, Elyssa, which is, what is your vision for the collective?
Thank you. It feels powerful to be asked this question. It is peace, prosperity, remembering of our oneness. It is really a casting off of burdens that have made us feel oppressed so that we can each pursue freedom and happiness, and that our creativity is not limited, but we are, together moving and creating a society that is like mind-blowingly incredible. And from there, we kind of all merge back to source.
Yeah, just wanted to give that a pause. Yeah, mine is, of course, the same and similar. And for me, it really is about recognizing the abundant nature of this world, moving beyond greed and the need to hold everything close, and into the realization that, oh man, the earth is here and giving. Like, she is just here to give and support and sustain, and that we are of the earth, that we as humans are not separate from each other. We are not separate from the earth, and we are not separate from the plants and the animals, and that we can live in a way that is reciprocal and symbiotic, and all that means live in a way where we love everything, where we give as we can and receive as, I hate the word deserve or in this state, but receive everything that we need to, and I love that you said this, Elyssa, like express our creativity and our appreciation for, I want to say, like the deliciousness, and I mean that in all of the senses, the deliciousness of this beautiful existence. And that doesn't mean bypassing and pushing away the pain. It doesn't mean, ignoring the hard, very real things that are going on in the world. But it does mean, to me, doing our best to serve in a way where we are all taking care of each other and sharing and caring, like Care Bears, so that, yeah, we can all of us, those of us here, in Canada, in the States, but also, and I know that people in Canada and the States are also hurting and dealing with scarcity, but so that the entire world can come into that peace, abundance, and nourishment that, God, Goddess, and the earth wants for us, and that is present. So it's hard to put into words. And I imagine if you're a guest on this podcast, you might have difficulty when we bring this up as well. I'd love to invite everyone who's listening, or anyone who's listening, to really consider what your dreams are for the collective as well. And I would love to hear it. So yeah, we're both on Instagram. And also, I believe this podcast will be on YouTube. Some of you are watching on YouTube, but I love to hear it. So please, do not be afraid to send me a DM at _Dawn_Petrin with what your vision for the collective is too. Because that's what we're here for, is actually, it's like this knowing. It's like every time a new client walks in the proverbial door, because it's probably a Zoom room, and then we speak to them about their vision for themselves and for the collective, it's generally the same, for us to have this peace, prosperity, abundance, and the recognition that we are all one, and that we are all love, and that it is time to, usher in this new age of love and abundance and nourishment for everyone.
Thank you. It's so beautiful. And it makes me think too, just calling in, here we are calling in soul family. And I think a lot of people who are genuinely kind of walking this path and and our visionaries wanting to create something big for this planet, and for just to be fully creatively expressed. If you've felt like you've walked alone, or your soul family, the people you most connect with, they've been where are they? Where are my people? Just want to let you know, hey, we're here. This is starting. It's already begun. And I do believe we've all have a very specific purpose here. And yeah, that is part of the vision too, that we can have like genuine and true connections. And so, yeah, got a little rambly, but I want to tell you, Soul Family, like, and it grows, like getting into this kind of arena. We've been like meeting and connecting with more and more people, shared vision that want to put spirit first in their work, in their entrepreneurship as stewards of the planet. And it's really like, it blows me away on the regular.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, have we come to the end of this episode, Elyssa?
I think we have, Dawn. Is there anything else you would like to bring present?
Oh, no, just guess gratitude for anyone who is listening, who feels the call of their soul and who wants to and is already, a part of this movement that we are just like one of multi voices for of being able to exist in a sovereign, free world where we are all bringing value, nourishment, abundance, and sharing. Yeah. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned because we're very lucky and have a large list of really epic guest speakers who keep saying yes. And yeah, if you're listening, let us know what you want to hear more of, what you're looking for, and yeah, what resonates and what doesn't.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Softpreneur podcast. If it resonated with your ethos and your soul, we would be so grateful to you if you leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast.
This helps us grow so much, and it also helps more visionary business owners find the show so they can make their dream life their real life. So many blessings and love.